The Cloud Collector. Once upon a time, in a small town nestled between green rolling hills and sparkling blue lakes, there lived a curious little girl named Ellie. Ellie was not like the other children in her town. While most kids spent their days chasing butterflies or picking wildflowers, Ellie had her eyes set on the sky. She loved watching the clouds drift by, changing shapes and colors as the sun moved across the sky. Some days, she would lie on her back in the soft grass and imagine the clouds were fluffy sheep, gentle dragons, or even floating castles. But Ellie's fascination with clouds went far beyond just watching them. She wanted to collect them. She wanted to keep them in jars on her windowsill, or maybe even in her backpack, so she could take a piece of the sky wherever she went. Of course, everyone knew you couldn't collect clouds. They were too high, too soft, too far away. But Ellie believed that if she tried hard enough, she just might find a way. One sunny morning, Ellie woke up with a wild idea. She rushed to her closet, pulled on her polka dot rain boots, grabbed her favorite blue backpack, and tiptoed downstairs. Her mum was in the kitchen, humming as she made pancakes. "Where are you off to so early, Ellie?" her mum asked.
"I'm going to find a way to collect clouds,"
Ellie declared. Her mum smiled, used to her daughter's imaginative adventures. "Well, if you catch one, make sure to bring it back for breakfast," she teased. Ellie grinned, grabbed a pancake for the road and set off into the wide, wondrous world. She wandered through the meadows, climbed up the tallest hill she could find, and gazed up at the sky. The clouds floated lazily above her, just out of reach. Ellie stretched out her arms as high as she could, but of course her fingers only brushed the empty air. "Maybe I need to be higher," she thought. So she went to Old Man Maple, the biggest tree in town, whose trunk was as wide as a bathtub and whose branches stretched up, up, up toward the sky. Ellie climbed until the ground looked tiny below her, and the clouds seemed almost close enough to touch. She reached out again, but the clouds still floated far above her head. Ellie sighed and leaned against a branch, thinking, "If I can't reach the clouds, maybe I can catch them another way," she mused. She opened her backpack and took out a glass jar, the kind she used to catch fireflies on warm summer nights. She held it up, unscrewed the lid, and waited. But the jar stayed empty. Just then, a gentle breeze rustled through the leaves, and a voice whispered, so soft and light that Ellie almost thought she'd imagined it. "You can't catch a cloud in a jar," the voice said. Ellie looked around and saw a tiny creature sitting on a nearby branch. It was no bigger than a pine cone, with wispy silver wings and hair that looked like spun sugar. Its eyes sparkled like raindrops. "Who are you?" Ellie asked in awe. "I'm Nimbus, a cloud sprite," the creature replied, fluttering its wings. "We look after the clouds and make sure they find their way across the sky." Ellie's eyes grew wide with wonder. "Can you help me collect a cloud?" she pleaded. Nimbus shook his head and laughed, a sound like wind chimes in the breeze. "Clouds aren't meant to be kept in jars, but I can show you something special. Come with me." With a flutter and a hop, Nimbus led Ellie higher and higher through the branches until they reached the very top of Old Man Maple. There, the world stretched out in every direction, and the clouds seemed to swirl just above their heads. Nimbus touched Ellie's hand, and suddenly she felt as light as a feather. She was floating. Up, up, up she went, with Nimbus by her side, until they were among the clouds themselves. Ellie gasped. Up close, the clouds were more beautiful than she had ever imagined. Some were soft and fluffy, like cotton candy. Others sparkled with the colors of the rainbow. She reached out, and her fingers slipped right through them, cool and damp, leaving tiny drops of water on her skin. Nimbus smiled. "Clouds are made of tiny water droplets, too small to hold. But if you listen closely, each cloud has a story to tell." Ellie closed her eyes and listened. She heard laughter from a rain cloud that had soaked children playing in puddles. She heard the gentle sigh of a cloud that had drifted over sleepy towns at night. She heard music from clouds that sparkled in the evening sun, painting the sky with colors. Nimbus gave Ellie a tiny silver bottle. "Clouds can't be caught, but you can collect their stories. Hold this bottle up to a cloud, and it will whisper its story inside. Then whenever you miss the sky, open the bottle and listen." Ellie thanked Nimbus and reached out with the bottle. She held it up to a cloud shaped like a friendly bear, and it whispered a tale about floating over faraway lands. She held it to a cloud shaped like a dragon, and it shared an adventure about racing the wind. When Ellie looked down, she saw her town nestled between the hills and lakes. She felt a tug, and suddenly she was floating gently back down, landing softly at the foot of Old Man Maple. Nimbus waved, his wings shimmering in the sunlight.
Remember, Ellie, Nimbus called. The sky is full of stories. All you have to do is listen.
Ellie ran home, her heart brimming with excitement. She placed the silver bottle on her windowsill, right next to her jars of wildflowers and seashells. Whenever she felt a longing for the sky, she would open the bottle and listen to the gentle whispers of the clouds. From that day on, Ellie became the cloud collector. She didn't keep clouds in jars, but she gathered their stories and shared them with everyone she met. She told tales of cloud castles floating over golden fields, of gentle rain that sang lullabies to sleepy children, and of brave clouds that danced with lightning. And so, in her little town between the hills and lakes, Ellie taught everyone to look up, listen, and dream. Because sometimes, the most wonderful things can't be caught or held. They can only be cherished, shared, and remembered forever. As the seasons changed, so did the sky. In spring, fluffy white clouds gathered like sheep, bringing gentle showers that made the flowers bloom. In summer, the clouds drifted high and thin, painting the sky with shifting shadows. In autumn, storm clouds rolled in, rumbling with thunder and flashing with lightning, while Ellie listened for their bold, booming stories. And in winter, the clouds hung low, heavy with snow, blanketing the world in sparkling white. With each passing day, Ellie's collection of cloud stories grew. She told them to her classmates at school, who began to look up at the sky and wonder what stories the clouds above them held. She shared them with her family at dinner, and even her little brother, who used to be afraid of thunderstorms, now waited eagerly for the next cloud tale. One day, while she was sharing a story about a cloud that had travelled across the ocean, an old woman from the town came to listen. She smiled and said, "When I was a little girl, I used to dream of riding on clouds. Thank you for bringing those dreams back." Ellie realised then that collecting cloud stories was even more magical than collecting clouds themselves. Stories could travel further and last longer than any jar or bottle. They could bring people together, spark new dreams, and turn even the greyest day into something full of wonder. As the years passed, Ellie never lost her love for the sky. She grew taller, her hair grew longer, but her eyes were always bright with curiosity. She still visited Old Man Maple, and sometimes, if the sunlight hit the leaves just right, she would catch a glimpse of Nimbus waving from the clouds above. And sometimes, when she opened her silver bottle, she could still hear the gentle whispers of the clouds, telling her stories of faraway places and grand adventures. So whenever you look up at the sky and see the clouds drifting by, remember Ellie, the cloud collector. Listen closely, and you might just hear a story whispering on the wind, a story waiting just for you. And so, the legend of Ellie, the cloud collector, grew. Children from nearby towns would come to visit, hoping to hear one of her famous tales. Some brought their own jars and bottles, hoping to catch a story for themselves. Ellie would show them how to listen, how to look up and imagine, and how to let the magic of the clouds fill their hearts. One summer afternoon, a boy named Max came to see Ellie. He was quiet and shy, with a notebook full of sketches. He loved to draw, but he never showed his pictures to anyone. Ellie saw Max sitting under Old Man Maple, gazing up at the sky, pencil in hand. She sat beside him and asked, "What do you see in the clouds today?" Max hesitated, then showed her his notebook. Inside were beautiful drawings of clouds shaped like whales, elephants, and even a rocket ship.
"These are amazing!" Ellie exclaimed. "Each cloud has its own story. What do you think they're saying?"
Max thought for a moment, then began to tell a story about a cloud whale that swam across the sky in search of the brightest star. As he spoke, His eyes lit up, and his voice grew stronger. Ellie smiled. "You're a cloud collector too," she told him. "You collect stories with your drawings." Max grinned, and from that day on, he and Ellie became friends. They spent many afternoons under Old Man Maple, listening to the clouds, drawing and sharing stories. Soon, more children joined them. Some collected stories in bottles, others drew pictures, wrote poems, or even made up songs about the clouds. The little town became famous for its cloud collectors, and everyone, young and old, learned to look up and dream. Ellie realized that collecting clouds wasn't about catching something to keep. It was about sharing wonder, listening to the world, and finding magic in the everyday. And so the sky above the town was never empty. It was full of stories, dreams, and the laughter of those who dared to look up. If you ever find yourself in a quiet town between green hills and blue lakes, and you see a group of children sitting under a great old tree, looking up at the clouds, listen carefully. You might just hear the whispers of the clouds, and the stories of Ellie, Max, and all the cloud collectors who came after. Because the sky is always full of stories, just waiting for someone to listen. Ellie's adventures didn't end there. As she grew older, her curiosity about clouds only deepened. She began to wonder what made the clouds form their different shapes. She read books from the library, talked to weather forecasters, and even built a little weather station in her backyard, complete with a homemade rain gauge and a wind vane made from an old soda bottle. She learned that clouds were made of tiny droplets of water or ice, floating high in the sky. When the sun warmed the earth, water from lakes and rivers would rise up as invisible vapor, cooling and turning into clouds. Some clouds meant rain, others meant good weather, and some signaled a coming storm. But no matter how much she learned, Ellie never stopped believing in the magic of clouds and their stories. For her, science and wonder went hand in hand. One chilly autumn day, while walking by the lake, Ellie met an old man named Mr. Whittle, who had once been a sailor. He told her about navigating ships by reading the clouds, predicting storms, and finding safe passage across the sea. "The clouds are our friends," Mr. Whittle said with a wink. "They tell us what's coming if we know how to listen." Ellie listened closely and added his stories to her collection. She realized that everyone had their own cloud stories, from farmers who watched the sky for rain, to pilots who flew through the clouds, to children who simply dreamed as they watched the shapes drift by. Inspired by all she had learned, Ellie decided to write a book. She gathered stories from everyone she met, sailors, farmers, pilots, and children, and filled the pages with tales of cloud adventures. She called her book The Cloud Collector's Guide. The book became a treasure in the town. Families read it together on rainy days, and children took it outside, looking up at the sky and imagining their own cloud stories. On the day of the book's release, a great celebration was held in the town square. People brought their cloud drawings, poems, and songs. Ellie shared her favorite story, the one of how she met Nimbus, the cloud sprite, and learned the true magic of collecting clouds. As the sun set and the sky turned pink and gold, the townspeople let go of hundreds of white balloons, watching them drift up, up, up into the sky, carrying their dreams and stories with them. And as the last balloon disappeared into the clouds, Ellie looked up and smiled, knowing the sky would always be full of wonder. Years passed, and Ellie became known as the wise cloud collector. She taught generations of children to look up, listen, and dream. The town grew, but its heart remained the same, a place where the sky was always watched and stories were always shared. And sometimes on quiet evenings, when the clouds hung low and the world was hushed, Ellie would sit by her window and open her silver bottle, listening to the whisper of the clouds, remembering all the stories she had gathered. For she knew that as long as there were clouds in the sky, there would be stories to collect, share, and keep safe in the hearts of dreamers everywhere. And so, the clouds drifted on, carrying stories across the world, waiting for the next cloud collector to listen, imagine, and share their magic with the world. So next time you see a cloud shaped like a dragon, a castle, or a whale, don't just watch it drift by. Listen. There might be a story waiting just for you. The end.